Pastor Mai, good afternoon. You're listening to Perspective on Manx Radio. I'm returning to some of the comments, and funds of 10 million have been set aside on green initiatives to mitigate the impact of climate change and the longer-term strategy following Professor Curran's report. I had a message before this programme went on air to ask if you could explain what the details are of the newly announced £5 million revenue-funded Environmental Protection Fund. Does that come under that 10 million? And what does it contain?
Well, we've had the Professor Curran report that's been approved by Tynwald now, but there's a lot of detailed analysis, particularly around finances, that needs to take place.
So there's 10 million this year, 25 million thereafter.
No, I mean, Professor Curran talked about a £25 million figure. We need to understand both the accuracy of that. Even Professor Curran himself said there's much more analysis required around that figure. We need to understand that in more detail. That's going to happen. The Climate Change Transformation Board is now set to go. Effectively, there needs to be more work streams put in place. And of course, before we actually get to the full detail of how much money is available and in what context and how that's got to be structured, where we get it from, we obviously need to understand what roadmap is going to be in place towards us achieving the targets that we're setting out to achieve. So this £10 million is purely a commitment from the Treasury, from the government, to be able to get on and react to any work stream that comes out from the Transformation Board, or any department that comes to Treasury and says that either current work streams need enhancement.
So the 10 million is not allocated yet?
It's not specifically allocated. We will get that allocated as and when people come to us with the relevant business case and are able to link it back to the positive outcomes needed to achieve the targets that we're setting.
So that 5 million revenue-funded Environmental Protection Fund is basically waiting to find out where it's going to go. We don't know anymore at this point.
Well, as I said, when we get the business case presented, or the Climate Change Transformation Board comes up with an immediate need that needs to be delivered on the island, then we'll be in a position to start getting on with it. It's about us committing to reacting quickly if there are these cases arising in the interim period before we've got a proper understanding. If it's going to be 25 million, how much of that, for example, is going to be needed from revenue, how much of that is going to be needed from our capital, or whether some of it could be addressed in other ways. Is there any lending, for example, that may be required? But one obviously needs to balance that out by taking our overall financial picture as well. So there's a lot of work to be done. That's our commitment to get things going.
Malcolm says, good afternoon. Good afternoon, Malcolm. It's totally unnecessary to spend this vast amount of money on climate change. The health system needs more.
Well, we've recognised that healthcare needs more money as well. That's why we've put £5 million into the Transformation Board for this current year, and that's why we will be looking at the National Insurance Fund in terms of reviewing that from a fairness perspective, an assessment of whether the total fund is being applied properly to get the maximum returns from that. And also, later this year we'll have more oversight as to how much more we should be investing into health in coming years. So these are big challenges. But as I said in my speech, Dolan, that whilst they are challenges, whilst they do seem quite intimidating, they're also huge opportunities, right? Huge opportunities for this island. Opportunities to deliver a class-leading healthcare and improve healthcare on this island, and we're absolutely committed to doing that. Opportunities also from a climate change perspective for a greener, cleaner island. That's going to bring new economic opportunities in various areas, opportunities for retraining, for reskilling, and opportunities for us to have better, cleaner solutions for the provision of electricity. So we can, we've got to investigate how we can do that in an environmentally rich situation. Is it going to be wind power? Is it going to be sea or water driven? Is it solar driven, for example? And alongside that, we can also try and find other opportunities in terms of improving the infrastructure on this island, a more active island, for example, improving our cycleways, our pathways, our footpaths. So there's a whole host of things that can be achieved out of this, and I think we need to look at these as opportunities rather than feel swallowed by the size of what's facing us.
Andy says, please, why can't Tynwald move as quickly as Westminster and ban the sale of coal as of April 2021? And we've got with us Devon Watson, who's a representative of the Climate Change Coalition. Is that a view you would endorse?
I mean, we aren't looking to ban anything. Rather, what we would like, maybe that would be a good idea. I've not looked into it too much, and we should probably mimic the good environmental initiatives coming in from the UK. But the view of the Isle of Man Climate Change Coalition is generally pretty moderate. We want to give people good, decent alternatives to using fossil fuels rather than preventing people from using polluting or dangerous things as it stands at the moment.
And as the Minister says, there are economic opportunities within that.
Yeah, definitely. So when people look at 10 million and worry, we don't think that that's enough, because largely what you would see is initiatives that would deal with climate change would make people's lives a lot better. So investing in public transport is something that 10 to 15,000 people in the Isle of Man use. More investment in public transport, we've seen funds cut from that over the past 10 years.
There is money for the buses, Minister, in this budget.
There is bus money.
The money has been spent partially on buses, but when we look at how that money's been allocated, we could have either invested in electric buses or hybrid buses, which would have saved long-term fuel costs and reduced maintenance costs. But instead, we bought the same fossil fuel buses.
The Infrastructure Minister has said there is going to be, I think, pilots for hybrid buses in the summer. Is that right?
We already know that they work, though, right? So the fact is what's the point of doing a pilot when you've already bought dozens or so of the more dirty buses, right? So in the long term, what you're doing when you make a decision like that is you make the decision to spend more money on fuel long term and spend more money on maintenance long term. These are not good fiscal decisions. Largely, environmental decisions also save you money, because saving resources also saves money. If we invest in renewable energy, that's less money that the Isle of Man generally has to send overseas importing fossil fuels. If we invest in insulating homes, that's less money that people have to spend on heating their homes during winter. If we invest in improving the environment of the island, that's less money we have to spend on our healthcare system, because there are many studies that show that pollution from vehicles contributes to health problems down the road. So largely saving money on the environment also saves us money down the road, and we shouldn't be shy to start taking bold measures. We can walk and chew gum at the same time.
Minister, do you feel you have taken bold measures, bold steps?
Well, I think the government's taken the right approach in a number of areas. I think the key thing, particularly when it comes to climate change, the commitments have been made now. We've had the report from Professor Curran. There's more work to be done. There will be some quick wins, if you like, that we can deliver out there in terms of, for example, active transport, and or active travel, and we're already investing in those areas. There's another £1.2 million or so being invested in the next 12 months, or in the budget, for us to improve the accessibility of the walkway between Peel and Kirkmichael, and I hope that will be delivered and people will find the transport route for them walking or cycling to be improved in that area. But it's also important that we also take time to draw a proper roadmap up that both the public and the government are on board with, and we properly understand where we're going. You know, one feels that we could also act in haste and repent at leisure. Technology's changing all the time. I think the key thing is to be absolutely clear on our vision for the next 10, 15 years, and to make sure that we're absolutely crystal clear, particularly when it comes to our key power source or key power sources. And I hope that a lot of time will be given in the next 12 months or so to opening up to understanding exactly what those opportunities are. It doesn't just have to be a wind or wind turbines or a wind farm. I think there's wind is one possibility, as I said, solar is another possibility, sea and water energy. So
on that note, Minister, Jack has asked, has the idea of a small nuclear power reactor for electricity been considered?
Well, that is another option as well, Dolan, and I don't know whether that's practical or not at this stage. But we do need to take a little bit of time to get absolute clarity on this before we plough on. And the other thing, it is important, government can't just do this by itself. It has to take the island with it for the most part. People have to have some form of say, understanding and buy-in towards achieving this in order for it to be delivered successfully.
I have to move on. We have, sadly, a very finite amount of time remaining. I want to ask you about the 10-year tax cap. Can you explain to us what that means?
Well, we've increased the tax cap. When we came in, we didn't think the level was appropriate at £100,000. We've increased that up to £200,000 over the course of this government. I think that was the right thing to do. We've also tried to ensure that when we're focusing on attracting tax cappers, we're bringing people who are going to be economically active in the community.
And this is something that was discussed in Tynwald, right? It was what high net worth individuals can offer the island or do offer the island.
Well, they do, particularly if they've got businesses and they're employing and directly employing. And a lot of them, in any case, I mean, in fact, high net worth individuals bring with them additional resources. They're probably creating jobs anyway through the investments that they're making. But it's also very positive for us if they've actively got their own companies as well. They're engaged in the local community and they've got jobs and employment and other benefits that they're bringing. So, listen, it still remains a strand, but adamant from my perspective, from other people who I work closely with in terms from political perspective. We've got to go forward together. You can't have a wide gap in society that's causing resentment and question marks over the value that people are bringing.
Do you believe that trickle-down economics works?
Well, we very much worked on the basis, actually, that trickle-up economics works incredibly well. And we've got we've created, I think, the right framework for a wide variety of contributors to the success of this island to come through. I think there's much more opportunities, much more money available these days, both from a private investment perspective and a government investment perspective for young entrepreneurs on this island to start their own businesses. And we're funding that both from sort of more standard industries, if you like, but also, for example, in fintech and blockchain technology, and the people and the facilities are there within the Department for Enterprise for people to come to that department and explore what opportunities and funding are available for them. So listen, this is about the whole rather than one single part. High net worths are valued on this island. They do bring jobs, they do bring economic opportunities, but they're one strand of the focus of the policies that we're adopting to try and take the island forward.
One thing that we do find frustrating, and I know a lot of people within that you talk to, the average person in the street, is there seems to be more concern that we prevent people with high incomes from leaving than we prevent young people from leaving the island massively. I mean, even if the tax cap largely wasn't there, they still need to manage and run their companies that are taxed at 0%. Those companies aren't going anywhere. But the problem is we've got incredible numbers of people. I've seen many of my friends leave. I've seen many young people leave. And the result of that is that the average age of the population is rising rapidly, and which means that we're going to have a crisis with pensions. We're going to have a crisis with healthcare down the road. And we don't have enough young people to sustain their dependency ratio. So it's frustrating to see that still, proportion to someone's income, a person on the bottom end of the income spectrum is still taxed at a higher rate than a multimillionaire or a billionaire. The people who need the help the least are given focus and help the most by the state in this regard, and this is something that a lot of people find frustration. Yes, we do need high income individuals on the island, but we also need to focus on average people, and they aren't going anywhere because their companies are still here.
Yeah. There are lots of points in there, and there's one that I want to pick on especially, and that's that government seems to have two priorities in attracting and incentivizing high net worth individuals, but also trying to grow the economically active population. That's something in the programme for government. Can you do both of those things at the same time?
Of course you can, Dolan. And we've done that successfully anyway in the last 4 years. 4 years ago, we had negative population decline. Right, this year in the budget, I said we have 400 plus more people on the island. 199 of those were under 65. We're investing more in terms of, for example, £500,000 into apprenticeships this year. We've provided more support in previous budgets for preschool education, for example. We are investing in our young on this island. We are providing the opportunities for them. We're growing and developing the economy. You can't make life better for people unless you grow and develop your economy. And I said everybody contributes across the spectrum. And sometimes, though, you have to have particular strands of the economy that need specific attention. It's not just high net worths. The government gives millions of pounds in support to the businesses. not businesses run by high net worths, businesses that are run by corporates and companies that don't make huge volumes in manufacturing, for example, in tourism. And we are always looking to support these businesses. We've just given £900,000 to the Visit Agency to target another 8,000 visitors to our shores in the next 12 months. And we're going to continue to invest. And as I said, we've stopped the decline. We've reversed that. We're bringing people back to these shores. And the policies in the round are helping contribute towards achieving that.